Winspiration, the way to the essential. On UK Health Radio, Winspiration brings wisdom and information for an extraordinary future. Together, we can shape the world we want to live in. So let's get real and create the idea. Be extraordinary. Welcome to another episode of Winspiration Radio. And today might be very, very interesting, maybe even scaring, but I just expect also that in the end we have some hope, because we will talk today about corona injections, or better, what can be the danger afterwards, or what kind of problems people could have after they got the injections. And at the beginning it was said, there is nothing, everything is fine, and now more and more we realize, or even governments accept, that there are problems. But most of doctors don't know how to handle all the problems, or don't understand really the problems. And today my guest is once more Dr. Stephanie Merse. We had Doctora just recently talking about blackout preventions and other stuff. And today also Dr. Sabine Stebel, and she studied biology, and she is one of the very few experts for protein engineering. And most people even don't know what protein engineering is. So first of all, welcome and thank you for joining today. And would love then to start. Dr. Stebel, if you please explain a little bit what is protein engineering.
So protein engineering is about 16-year-old field of study. So it's basically the study of how proteins fold. And to understand folding, you have to mutate your protein. So with the mutations, you see effects in the protein. It might change its substrate specificity, or be just not functional anymore, or have a completely different structure. And you can try to understand what effect these mutations had on the folding process, on the structure of your protein, to sometimes, perhaps in the far future, to be able to predict the 3D structure of a protein, which is at the moment not possible.
Mm-hmm. If there were most people...
So I did some mutational studies in my PhD. I truncated my protein, which was called chloramphenicol acetyltransferase, or short CAT.
Yeah.
I truncated it by 10 amino acids, and then it was basically broken. It didn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. And then I started to mutate it by different methods, and after 2 mutations, it worked again. So these 2 mutations were enough to revive my protein. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they did this. I really didn't understand why this protein worked again with these 2 mutations, but perhaps in the future, these data points might help to understand how proteins fold.
Okay. Interesting. First of all, my first knowledge about protein was if you want to build muscles or whatever, you need some more protein. It's good to eat proteins. But now all with the COVID stuff is that, okay, they really, work on the proteins, and build a protein is a building block for everything in the body. And now you said, okay, even the experts didn't know exactly how this works. So when we coming now to the corona problems and all the injections we had, and the idea to protect people, and now we know that millions of people have problems with those injections. So like when you said, I didn't know, did they know what they were doing and putting really in the injections?
So there are some rules for protein engineering, some basic stuff we understand. So if you change the codons, so the basic 3 building blocks, every amino acid has a code of 3 nucleotides. And if you change these codes, even if you don't change the amino acid by this changes the process of how a protein folds. So you might get a completely different structure by just changing the codes for an amino acid. The most extreme case known in literature is one silent mutation, and the protein has a completely different substrate specificity. So it uses another substrate, although it's still basically the same protein code, but another structure. And they changed the codons. in a very extreme way. So we don't know how this protein that people produce looks like. They didn't characterize that.
Mm-hmm.
So even in their own data, they show that although it's basically the same amino acid sequence, the version 8 and 9 are different because the immune system reacts differently on these proteins the people produce. So they did the study phase 1 and 2 with version 8 and went into the rollout with version 9. So it's completely protein from what they tested in the studies.
Yeah.
So, and this protein isn't characterized. We don't know anything about the structure, how it works, how it functions, when it denatures. So it could denature perhaps at 7 centigrades. It could be, we don't know.
Mm-hmm. But I guess the pharmaceutical industry who produced all those stuff knew that they might bring something on the market with a lot of risk because the governments made contracts that they are not really responsible or they don't need to, they can't be sued, and everything, problems go to the government. But first of all, so the patient has a problem and the patient's a taxpayer and pays for all the problems and himself. Stephanie, you are the doctor, you have the patients coming to you. So how was it for you getting the first problems? When did you realize that it might be the injection, or what do we know today?
At the beginning, when the injection was announced, I get a lot of questions in my head, and I ask the experts, and I don't get sufficient answers. And so I was very vorsichtig. Careful. At the beginning, I had a careful look on my patients who get the vaccines in the vaccine centers.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first time, most of the people had no side effects. They have no problems. They feel well.
Mm-hmm.
But after the second shot, a lot of people get problems. The little problems, they feel sick for a week, like a common cold.
Mm-hmm.
And then they feel better. After the third shot, it changes. A lot of people had developed unspecific injuries. Mm-hmm. For example, muscle pain, pain in the articulations, feel very tired, like chronic fatigue syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a little space to move.
Yeah.
For example, a young woman, a young mother of 2 children, she can awake in the morning, go to the bathroom, and then she needs a break, calm down for half an hour, and then she can go to the kitchen, and then she needs a big break again.
Yeah.
And she isn't able to work for more than 1 year.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of injuries of in the immune system. For example, the thyroid develops new immune dysfunctions. It is increasing in young men. Normally, a young man doesn't develop this disease, but we see a lot of in young men.
Yeah. What do you think after the first injections? Not so much, and then the more injections, the more problem. Did they change the stuff for the injection, or because it was another amount going in the body?
So there are many possible explanations of why this changed. So first of all, they started with a different buffer system. So they started with a phosphate buffer and diluted the solution by saline. But nanolipids and saline don't go well with each other. So they start to flocculate. So maybe the transfection rate was lower because the product just flocculated and just clumped the arteries or whatever, or capillaries.
Mm-hmm.
Then they changed the buffer system to tris buffer and didn't dilute with saline. So the transfection rate might have gone up. This is one possibility. Another possibility is the nanolipids camouflage the mRNA. If you normally get a second infection with a normal pathogen, the immune system recognizes these pathogens. In this case, you have a new transfection. The immune system recognizes this new product, but it can't get rid of it before the transfection starts. So the cells start to produce, and the immune system now recognizes these products, and the reaction will be much stronger than the first or second time, which wouldn't be the case in a normal infection. Mm-hmm. Because in a normal case, the third infection wouldn't just take place.
Yeah. So if there now is something happening what you're not expecting, what is not normal, how do you come to an idea to support or to help to treat the patients? Because if there was a mistake at the beginning, I guess nobody has an idea directly to, let's say, for the right treatments.
Now we look back over time, nearly of 3 years, and we can see the damages. And the medical government launched a new website in July in Germany with a lot of answers to long COVID. And they tell us the number of the injured people they expect. In Europe, it might be 1 person of 30. It's a big amount of people we will see with damages. And it can be very different. It can be a local damage at the arm where you receive the injection. In some people, the muscle are changed, and sometimes they get a rupture and have a deficit in moving the arm. That is müssen wir rausschneiden.
I see it. We can translate.
Es ist eine Einschränkung. Ja, you have less life quality if you can't use your arm in the normal way.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, have restrictions, so they're restricted in their movements. So you can just ask me for translations if you need some.
Thank you for your support, Sabine.
I wanted to be an English teacher.
I know. Okay. On the other side, we have big damages. And we see 3 types of patients. Some of them, they knew that they have a disease, and it was developed in the first 12 weeks after they received the injection, and they are asking for help. The other part of the patient is very scared because they have heard that they might have a damage. And these people, we have to have a closer look, and I hope we can calm down them with a lot of with results for an blood example, and say, okay, you don't have a high risk, you can calm down. And the third group, which is my focus, are the people who think they are healthy, but they have more and more infections. Mm-hmm. For example, a young father with 2 children in the kindergarten, they bring home normal infections, and the parents get sick for 1 or 2 weeks with the same disease, mm-hmm. which is normally only a disease in the childhood and not normal in the adult lifetime. Mm-hmm. And they need the doctor and need treatment and can't go to work for 2 or 3 weeks. And that is not normal. And these patients are in my focus.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So now it happened already with all the injections, but I see still people go for injections or vaccinations, and still, yes, governments are recommending it so far. But what is, from your perspective, besides all the problems, we see now the best solution to handle the problem? Because it's not only the individual problem. Just in short talk before, we said, that is really a big society problem. How can people work? What will it do to our gross domestic product and everything? Who is working for pensions? It's a huge, big problem. Mm-hmm.
As is a recommendation to get a new injection has changed. Mm-hmm. In Germany, it is not recommended for children under 18 years. Mm-hmm. No recommendation. And in the adults only to get a new shot if they're over 60. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting...
Can you explain me, please, why when I'm over 60 have an advantage, but nobody else who is younger than 60?
The people over 18 years, mm-hmm. the government recommends a basic immunization with 3 shots, mm-hmm. or a neutral infection with COVID, and then 1 shot additional. Mm-hmm. And then after 60, they think that the immune system might be lower effective. Mm-hmm. And so they recommend a shot once a year. But
but who is checking then the immune system? So now I'm over 60, not a shot yet, avoided the vaccination. So would you recommend then? Okay, you're over 60, get one.
I think you can take an alternative way and have a look by a blood example. Did you have the disease, and how many antibodies are in your blood? How many antibodies have your immune system built? And then it's possible to take a personal recommendation.
So the doctor with the patient says, "Oh, let's check the antibodies," and the expert for the protein engineering, would you ever suggest, because you said they don't know really what can happen. So I guess personally, I will hesitate to let something in the body when nobody can really be clear what will happen.
So we have many problems. First of all, we don't know the transfection rate. We don't know how many cells will start to produce. We don't know how much protein will be produced, because they used 1-methyl-pseudouridine, which produces even more protein, about 6 times more protein than in the first Carico studies with pseudouridine. So we don't know from the start how much protein will be produced by cell. And this is also dependent on age. The younger you are, the more protein you will be producing. Mm-hmm. And the older you are, less protein will be produced. Mm-hmm. A young person has a strong immune system. This means that the more protein you produce, the stronger your immune system will attack. But this is more or less in an equilibrium. The same with the old people. Less protein and weaker immune system. Really bad for the middle-aged. So still very good production of proteins, but a less effective immune system, which is basically a lose-lose situation. So that's why this age group has the most problems. Mm-hmm. So it's not the children or the old people who have a problem with that system, but the middle-aged. Mm-hmm. And we don't understand protein production in single-cell organisms. We are multicellular. We have different tRNA equilibriums or mixtures in different organs. So it could be that every organ produces slightly different folded proteins, because there are kinds of tRNA which are very new. We don't know how they function, and we don't know how their regulatory function might be. They're really new, and it's hard to tell what kind of protein is produced in the different organs. So it even might be that the organs produce very different protein structures, and it's a trimeric protein. These could mix in the bloodstream, so you get many different spike proteins with different subunits. But there is no laboratory data to show or prove what I'm saying. The data from the labs are not very satisfactory, let's say that. Mm-hmm. And it's all paper trails at the moment. This is not a situation where I would advise to take such a shot because we don't know anything. We don't know how it's produced. We don't know how much it is produced. We don't know really how long it's produced. We don't know what kinds of proteins are produced and how they mix. And
when you say
only the correctly folded, more or less correctly folded. So they have different species of wrongly folded proteins in addition. So it's really complicated.
When you say we don't know, who is the we? Because now I experience it in countries, in German-speaking countries, at least that doctors at the time who didn't recommend vaccinations got really stressed and was really at the edge of losing the license. So the government and even doctor authorities were really pushing for it. Did they change their mind, or they must be really convinced at that time that they know what they're doing?
Well, there are different stages of knowledge. And the first stage is not knowing that you're not knowing.
Mm.
If you don't know that there is a lot of things you don't know, you think you know what you're doing.
Mm.
And I think that's the problem. They thought they knew because they didn't know what they didn't know. And so they just went on.
Okay, that sounds about like, in any way, it was a kind of, let's say, zeitgeist, because you see it in, when we had the financial crisis, they made a lot of stupid stuff and didn't give out mortgages, and the house was not the value. Somehow they knew what they were doing, but we believe it will end up beautiful for us, and ignore all the basics, and that the body is also a complex and system, and this linear thinking always creates a problem. Or Stephanie, what
German calls Fachidiotie. I don't know. So they only know their little part of expertise, and they don't look to the right or the left, and they think, I know how mRNA works,
yes,
but they have no idea about protein folding, and that's a problem. They're
just thinking holistically. They're just like doctors are specializing, whatever. We can have it all. If a car mechanic is only specialized on repairs, he will never talk with the driver to drive different or behave different. So Stephanie, what do you see as a development in your day-to-day practice with patients, not only for you or also for doctors in general? Is that now government is opening up and sharing what they could do? But how many doctors who were so convinced that this is the right thing, how is it possible for them, first of all, to change their mind and accept that they did something what was maybe very, like you said, tunnel view, and change their mind and learn how to treat now different?
It's the first time of the injection campaign. It was beside the normal medical treatment system. And that is one reason, because why the medical doctors didn't see it earlier that there are damages. And now in the second part, they started to give the injection in the family doctors' consultations, and they get a direct response. Mm-hmm. And could discover that there are a connection between the injection and the new neu aufgetretene Krankheitsbilder.
New I would say sicknesses we would realize.
Yes, and the sickness are a very large field with very different parts. The neurosystem, the heart system, the vessel system, the liver, the kidneys, the brain, nearly everything in the body might be reduced in the normal way. And that's the challenge, to discover to which part it belongs and which special diagnostic is necessary. Normally, you deliver the patient to an expert for the heart, to an expert for the lung, to an expert to the neurology system. And if this 3 doesn't find a correlation, then they were delivered to the psychologist or the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And then they got a stamp. Yeah. And the only treatment which is recommended at the moment is called pacing. Pacing is to look how many energy you have today, and every day takes the decision, what can I do possibly today? How much time I need and how many times to calm down I need. Yeah, and then you should accept the limitation. Then you should communicate the limitation with your family, perhaps with your work.
Yeah, well, that is not really a good solution to accept what is.
No, and at last you have to write a daily diary, and by writing down your limiters, you fix it. And it's very hard to.
You believe the awareness will help? Just simple awareness will help? No.
It's only a part to accept it that you can't do what you want.
Okay.
But it's not a step out to more energy.
That is not a great solution, just believing all.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Okay.
Yeah, that is recommended from the government.
Crazy. Just let's short break and then let's better talk about solutions. So just a short break. Okay. Government and a lot of things. If you look at pension plans, if you look now financial crisis, how they treat it, there's a lot of treatments always on the surface. The real problem in the financial system, nobody is targeting. They always hope to keep on, it will solve. And we see the same thing here in the so-called medical or the health industry. You said just they made mistakes so that they didn't know what they're doing. Like in the financial industry, I don't see them going really to the basics and solve the basic mistakes. And how is it now with all the protein engineering? Can we really from there come to a solution that Dr. like Stephanie has better treatment possibilities?
So if you have proteins which don't fold properly, there are some structures which will accumulate in your body, either fibrils, so amyloid fibrils, or glomeruli, or so-called inclusion bodies. To get rid of that, you have to kind of refold these proteins or get them into solution somehow to get them out of the body. So there are different natural substances which are known to refold proteins, like ECGC from green tea. There are some in vitro experiments which show that ECGC influences the folding procedure of proteins. Methylene blue is known to refold tau proteins in the brain. It was used for Alzheimer and brain diseases in the 1920s. So it's a really, really old medical substance which can be used for different kinds of problems like depression or rheumatic illnesses. So it's used anyway in medicine. So you could try to refold the proteins using methylene blue or ECGC in combination. You can try to denature the spike protein using natural kinase and get rid of the fragments, protein fragments using bromelain. So to help the body to get rid of it and keep on doing this till it stops producing this misfolded proteins.
So simply said, there are detoxing possibilities to get the stuff out. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, let's say you have a good chance to refold part of the wrongly folded proteins. We don't know how much you will get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not only proteins that can be in your arteries or veins. So it could be a mixture of different stuff like fibrils from destroyed blood cells. It could be complement system in combination with wrongly folded proteins. Mm-hmm. So a multi-component system. And we don't have lab data to really know what we are coping with. So as the lab data front is really, really weak. We don't have many labs who want to work with us or have the possibilities to do the analysis we would need. We don't really know what we are coping with, to be honest.
It feels for me like we saw a lot of interesting movies. Also, the Americans make war with a country. Doesn't matter if it's Afghanistan or whatever country. A lot of billions are there for weapons. And if the war is over, there is no money really for building the country again, and creating the peace, education, everything. So it feels like here also, okay, a lot of money was brought in or made with creating the problem, but there is not, when the data is weak, as you said, not really money going in and to understand the right thing. We want to understand it.
The problem is, they are still denying that these problems are caused by the shots. So there is money for long COVID. So it's all the virus. So you might get money to do science on long COVID, which is kind of more or less useless. But the side effects of the shots are not financed by the state. So it's mostly in secrecy done by some private labs. Sometimes it's lawyers who finance some analyzers they might use for a court case. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the easiest way may be, as Stephanie just wrote, as feasting. So you go to the keto phase. So you can start this detox. There was a Nobel Prize for this detox process a few years ago, how this works in cells with the ubiquitin and stuff like that. But the body needs time, and at that time, you shouldn't add energy or whatever into the cells, so they can just start house cleaning. So this cell house cleaning process might do a lot of damage reduction, but this means you have to eat less and less, and no cheese or whatever you like. So you have to keep a keto phase, no sugar. No, I don't know. I don't do keto. So Stephanie maybe knows better how to live in the keto phase. So to help your body to repair all the damage.
Mm-hmm. But one thing is that
really
I think
that you don't need a doctor to do this. So ECGC you can buy on Amazon. The same with methylene blue. You can just buy that stuff. So you don't need a doctor to do that.
Mm-hmm. So, but you need
doesn't agree with me that you don't need a
responsibility to really take interest in your health, and that's another problem that we are so trained by health insurance, at least in the German-speaking area. Oh, the doctor tells me what to do, and I don't need to take care, or I can eat whatever I want, and then I take a pill, and everything is fine. So it's not just the medical system; it's also that we love, just doing it. Without really taking care of our body. But I want to ask more. That is partly now what is after all the problems and how we heal. What is going on now? And when you said we don't understand really the protein working, and you said the protein engineering is not really supported to understand the building blocks. We could go in there and just be so much more interested to strengthen the people. But that is not really the case when I understand it.
So protein folding isn't understood at all. So if you look at in some of the papers, they said we can land on Mars, we can calculate it. That's kind of easy. We can't calculate how protein folds. It's much more complicated. Mm-hmm. So even with deep learning, it's not possible to predict a 3G structure of a protein. So as we don't know what we are coping with, we don't know how this protein looks like. We don't know the different stages of its folding or its movements. the movements of a protein, the different stages of this movement are in an equilibrium. And if you destroy this equilibrium, it will try to reach it again. So they try to produce a spike protein, a pre-fusion state. Now they have one state fixed if it had worked. So this fixed state will accumulate and flocculate or build amyloid fibers so that the natural equilibrium will be able to get installed again in the cells. So even if it had worked, it would have gone wrong because they didn't accept that in nature everything flows. And you can't hinder a moving river. It will find another way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the complexity of life or universe, it's easy ignored with the so-called mechanistic worldview, and that makes a big problem. And
yeah, well, it could work if you had the full picture, but you don't have the full picture. You can buy these A1 posters from Roche, this metabolic pathway posters with very small print in A0. Yeah. It's huge. It's normally in every lab, and it's just a part. We don't know everything. And if you don't have the full picture, you can't work with a mechanistic view because you're missing parts. Well, you can't drive a car without with half an engine.
Well, that is a problem at the moment in the Western view of science. That's that we try to see it, and it's just like what we as humans see is just a little fraction of what other people see, which is of light spectrum is so little, and we easily believe that's the only thing what is out there. There's so much more out there. Well, Stephanie, when we now have the topic here, it says, we don't know really what it will work because we don't understand everything. And you just said, first of all, the government didn't, the government ignored a lot of problems. Now, when you say that the government is really already posting on a website. Yes, we have the problem there, and 1 out of 30 might have the problems. Do you see then that from there comes a bigger support for the doctors to help all the patients? Because it's a huge amount. This number is millions of people just in one country.
It is not easy to get a solution because we need studies to get money for research, and we don't get the money for the research because we don't have studies at the moment. It's a circle. The cat is biting his in cats are biting
the cat bites its own tail.
Well, when I'm a little bit sarcastic, it says we never get money really for research for helping people if there is maybe not a good pill coming out. So the classical conspiracy, the pharmaceutical industry is only investing money where they make a profit.
But we have other options. The body is not a machine, and we have repair systems. One part we know very well is to use fasting. With fasting is to make times of non-eating or only less eating. And in this part, you can rebuild the false proteins because the proteins are used to make energy. And so we can reduce the false protein structures to get rid of them. But it's not easy. You need a doctor for the very weak persons who aren't able to move really, and to let these people fasting, you need a special part of support. Yeah, it's not the decision. Okay, today I don't eat. It's easy. For the weak people, it isn't easy. They need a very good educated doctor at their side.
Yeah, actually on the topic of protein, and a lot of people warning with the fasting, be careful that you're not you're only cleaning. Maybe you weaken your muscles. So,
but this is one way as a solution. The other part is to support the body with the right vitamins, with the right minerals, and you have to detect how many and which one the person needs. Sometimes they need it as injections. And the third part, which is a hopeful part, is to use oxygen. Oxygen given directly in the organism has a big effect. We see the different for venous oxygen. Other parts give more oxygen, like to go climb on the mountain, and then less oxygen. Or the third way is to have high dose oxygen for the nose. That might be possible at home for the very weak people, but for that we need the support of the health system to do that, and we need studies to do this.
Okay, let's just make a short break.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Okay, we need help. One part is with the studies of the protein to get more data there, and the other part is getting more help also financially in the health system, health insurance system, at least there where good health insurance system is, to cover all these treatments. Doctora, you are now really say known for having good checklists for everything. So is there a possibility to get a checklist from you? Just if you feel here are 3-5 tips, do this. It's anyway very good for you and it might help in the problem.
From the general point of view, I think we need service centers, medical service centers specialized for these patients, for long COVID and vaccine injured people. And not only 2 or 3, we need it in all great areas. For example, in the province where I live, we expect more than 600,000 injured people. And at the moment, we have not one center was specific for these patients. And that is one part. The second part is we need education for the medical doctors, that they know what is going on, because only what you know you can see by the patients. And this part of education is the second step we need. The third is that the people discover if there is the injury in the time 3 months after the injection developed, and to discover that it might be an injury, because some of them have heard, okay, it's normal that you have ache in the arm where you received the injection, but it's not normal to have pain in a high level over 8 months. And so we have less numbers who are sent their information to the government, because we don't know if it's only the topic of the iceberg or it's a real number. We will know it in the future.
Okay, that is not really making me totally happy, this outlook.
Yeah, one sentence more. If we support the people to be stable for the next 2 or 3 years, a lot of them develop natural mechanism to support the body to survive. And it's now our part to support the people the next 2-3 years to be stable.
Yeah, and that is a mindset topic and a cell set topic. And we're always coming also is more and more to realize that the whole system needs to have a different focus. And it starts also with the science, with the labs. Is there something to see? There is a lack of data. Nobody understands really the protein. That now after these COVID problems, that there is more interested in understanding it right.
Nobody talked about protein folding for the last 3 years till I started it, because there are not many protein engineers left. It was the hype at the early 2000s. Then it switched to systems biology, and now they do synthetic biology. So protein folding, directed evolution. I don't know how many scientists are working on this field at this time. If there's anyone left, I don't know. So it's also really complicated to understand protein folding. You need chemists, physicists, biologists. It's an interdisciplinary field where you need lots of specialists, which might be jabbed and I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I think we should go on without knowing all the details and working with the natural flow. So help the body heal itself. For that, you don't need to understand the details. You just have to.
I have a word now. You just use the word like natural flow. But I think it fits for me, or what you share also with all the studies and science. We are anyway at the world with the discussion of artificial intelligence and more robots. But it feels like also the human body or the human, whatever that might be now, is more seen and treated like a robot and a machine. So, and natural flow is that how do we come back to see the humans? It is simply what I understand what Stephanie Doctorova is doing, really dealing on the human level. And do we need to have a totally different view of humanity?
So if you understand the natural laws, you can't see a body or a human or an animal or whatever as a machine. You just have to understand biology and how it works. And you normally learn that panta rhei, the old Greek saying, everything flows. It's a constant stream of information that changes, like wind or rivers. And you just have to go with the flow. If you try to go against the flow, it won't work. So help the body to heal itself, and the patient has to feel for himself if it works or not. So you have to get the feeling for your own body back. Don't just do these stupid tests. Sit down, close your eyes and feel if you're feeling good or not. You don't need a test for that.
So don't delegate everything in the outside, whatever it is, education for kids to the teacher, money to the banker, or your health to the doctor or the insurance. It's more about self-realization, self-awareness, responsibility in any case. And therefore, with totally a different talk in the society. So we have not time to really do it, continue here in this today. But I hope we covered some topics that everybody is a little bit more aware of self-responsibility and that there are solutions. I know that Stephanie, the time was running, but put your website out so everybody who wants to learn more can contact her. And thank you, Dr. Schäbe, for the insight and problems of the product. And okay, everybody, a very short sentence, and then we need to close.
Okay, we are, as humans, existing in three parts. We have a body, we have a soul, and a mind, and it's our challenge to be in a stable equilibrium, and that is necessary to stay healthy.
Thank you.
And biology knows that your mind can change your epigenetics. So you can influence by thinking your immune system and your body. It's known, it's used in psychotherapy, and you can change it. You can see the changes in epigenetics. So it's also self-responsibility, maybe meditating. You have to try for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for this topics. I know it's not so easy to understand everything as a normal person, not studied those things, but thank you. And I'm looking forward to continuous and getting more insight in the future. And please be inspired and know there are possibilities to live a so much more better life. This was another episode of Winspiration, Wisdom and Information to support you getting out of illusions, false identifications, limiting beliefs. We all have the power and potential to be more, do more, have more, give more. Reality is what is possible in the universe, and the best is yet to come. If you want to dive deeper into possibilities of creating the extraordinary future, go to winspiration.global or to wolfgangsonnenburg.com. More information and some free downloads like the email program Dream Goals Reality or a copy of the book The Best Is Yet to Come can be found on the UK Health Radio website under the Listen on Demand and Presenters section. Join us again next week on the Winspiration Show for more wisdom and information to create your extraordinary future.